So how many of you guys here have either a niece or a nephew? Cool, so most people know what's going on. So I've got a nephew, he's 2 years old, my sister's kid, and I love the little guy. I want to do everything I can to improve and enhance his life as much as I can without derailing my own. So I spent the entire weekend with him last weekend. Friday after work, went down there, spent the night. Woke up Saturday, whole day, spent the night. Sunday, woke up with my sister, we took him to church, and then when he went down for his nap around noon, I slipped away, made a clean getaway. So whenever I play with my nephew, there are always two things I make absolutely sure I do. The first is I make sure that I teach him something. Every single time I teach him something, just some word or some action. The last time I was with him, actually before the last time, a couple weeks ago, I taught him the word reach. And I enunciate the word clearly. I say reach, and I use a fun tonality to give the word a little character, and I always incorporate some sort of body motion so he really gets the idea. And then after all that, I help him experience that word. So I'd be sitting at the table and I would say, I'm going to reach for the fork, or I'm going to reach for my water. So he kind of gets the idea of what the word entails, right? So later that day, we're playing in the backyard at my grandma's house, his great-grandmother. There's a fig tree, and then I see a plump fig just dangling from a branch. So I snatch the kid up, and I hang him, just out of range, and I say, John, reach, John. And his eyes kind of get big, and he says, reach, and he plucks the fig with a big smile. He learned the word reach, but he understands the idea that that word encapsulates. He knows what it means to reach. So then this past weekend, when I spent the whole weekend with him, I taught him another word. We were playing on Saturday morning, and I go, John, do you want to build a fort? And he kind of looks at me because he's never heard the word fort before. He's 2. I'm like, come on, let's go build a fort. And I try to act as excited as I can. And I grab him by the hand, we run to the couch, and I'm playing with him, and I push the little button so the reclining chair kind of comes out, and we take a big blanket, and we drape it over so that all 3 sides are kind of covered. And then, of course, he wants to crawl right in, and I'm not quite the size of a 2-year-old. And he's trying to pull me by the arm, come on, Nini, come in. So I'm like trying to be a good sport, and I'm worming my way back in there. And I kind of get from like my shoulders to my head in. And we're hanging out in there, and we're giggling and laughing, and then I slip out and give him a little time at his new favorite place. And that brings me to the second thing that I always try to do with my nephew. I try to play along with him. Whatever he wants to do, wherever he wants to go, however he wants to play, I go with his flow. I help him explore. I try to answer his questions. If he talks, I talk with him. If he's quiet, I just stay quietly with him. Wherever he goes, I follow. I go with his flow. And what's interesting is, because I never try to control him, whenever I do suggest something or try to influence him, he just goes with it immediately, no questions asked. Hey John, time for a bath. Oh, okay. Just walks up, takes a bath, no fighting. Now his grandparents on his father's side, his other side, they love him because he's cute and he's smart and all this stuff, everything you dream of for a 2-year-old. But they smother him. Because they love him so much, they just want to hug him and kiss him and take pictures with him and try to get him to say their name on video and do all these cool tricks, and he just gets annoyed. He doesn't want to just be some monkey doing tricks when you tell him to, so he kind of pushes away from him. He's very independent and incredibly strong-willed. One night my sister was making dinner for him, and she popped the Tums or whatever, she had a stomach ache. And the kid sees it, and he goes to grab some. He watches his mama eat them. And she goes, no, John, that's not candy. And she puts it in the cabinet. And she turns around and keeps cooking her dinner. And the little shit grabs a chair, takes it all the way across the kitchen, puts it against the cabinet, climbs up the chair, scales the counter, and then opens the cabinet and takes out the Tums. And meanwhile, this is all completely under the radar. My sister's cooking, all she hears is, yummy candy. And she turns around and grabs the kid, calls poison control, he's ate like 10 of them. It was fine. But he wanted that candy. And think of the ingenuity for a 2-year-old. The kid's 2 years old, he dragged a kitchen table chair all the way across the room, sneakily. and got what he wanted. He will move mountains if he puts his mind to it. Nothing will stand in his way. So with all this in mind, one day, he and I are playing outside in the backyard. He has this little plastic house, and he's pretending to cook me chips on his little plastic stove. Feed me tortilla chips for buddies. I've squeezed in there, I'm kind of crouched in. He's kind of small. And his Tata, his Arabic grandma, comes walking out. And she, he hears her calling his name, John! And he's, cooking, he just turns and gives you this look, just like, he walks out of the little plastic house, and she's like, oh, John, she's all excited. And he grabs her finger, and she's like, her heart is melting, like, oh my God, he's engaging me. She's like, oh, John, where are we going? And he's pulling her back towards the back door of the real house. And it hasn't dawned on her yet, and he lets go, and just with both hands pushes her on the button and just says, bye-bye. And he turns around to walk away, and she's kind of sitting there like, oh my God. He goes, John, you want me to go back inside? And he's walking off, he just goes, bye-bye. He goes back in the house, keep playing with me. Little kids just want to do what they want to do. It's no different than grown-ups. They want to explore. They want to learn. They're curious. Kids are insatiably curious. What's every kid's favorite question? Why? Why? Well, I got a question. Why don't grown-ups just answer the question? Now, I get that no grown-up's going to know every answer off the cuff, but how many of you here do not have a smartphone? So we have all the information in the entire planet at our fingertips. Why don't we just satiate the kids' answers? So, I learn a lot from my nephew. I learn to go after what you want and move mountains if you have to get what you want. I learned to be nice. And I learned not to try to control people, because people don't like to be controlled. But the best thing I learned from my nephew is never to forget to play. Thanks.